Welcome to the Whistle Stop Wanderers. Thanks for joining us today to talk about some trains, carnations, castles, and crossroads. Today we're talking about Alliance, Ohio, and their Amtrak stop. Today we're going to learn how a small, unstaffed Amtrak station in Alliance, Ohio tells the story of one of the largest cranes in the world. Secret passages, carnations, and a castle, all in one 15-minute stop, or thereabouts. As always, I try to gather all the information from the Amtrak timetables, the Great American Rail Station website. This time I did a lot of college research at Mount Union College. There's a really good book written on the college by one of the college librarians. At the Alliance Historical Society, they have some really great house tours, and then they also have a YouTube web series called Marking Time in Alliance, done by Jim Perrone. And I actually got to meet Jim when we went there and visited the city. We did do site visits at Glamorgan Castle, the Haynes House, the Hartsville House, Mount Union College, the Amtrak station. We visited during the Carnation Festival, and then we also ate at two restaurants, Old Caroline Barbecue Company, which is a local barbecue place, as well as Papa Gyro's, which also is a local Greek place. I try to be as accurate as possible when I do these. I usually read way too many books on the subject, as well as any other research that needs done in the Historical Society or talking with residents, etc. In 1876, the first physician in Alliance, Levi Lamborn, who was friends with the Grant family, a Quaker family in town, gave his congressional seat opponent, William McKinley, a rare scarlet carnation. Lamborn had started to cultivate these. He had imported some from France after the Civil War, and he just really liked the flower. So McKinley started wearing it in his lapel, and he won the congressional seat, later going on to become president of the United States. And he always credited it as his lucky charm. The rumor is that he had just given the carnation out of his lapel to a small girl before he was assassinated. Again, as the legend goes. So today we're going to be talking about, as I stated, the origin of Alliance, the station and the Abraham Lincoln connection, the railroad, the Underground Railroad, Mount Union College, Morgan Engineering, and Alliance today and the future. Alliance was formed in 1854 when the cities of Williamsport, Freedom, and Liberty came together. It was named Alliance, first of all, to signify the unity in combining the three towns, but also because of the X's that the railroad makes. This is a strategic location along the line where the two lines cross. The earliest structures in downtown followed the rail line, and if you look at the town, you can see that Main Street points directly at the depot. So for a visitor, it makes it pretty clear where you are and how to orient yourself when you arrive. The first depot was built in 1853, and then it was rebuilt after a fire in 1863. Lincoln stopped here in 1861 on his way to D.C. He did eat at a local hotel, Sauerbach's Hotel, and today a limestone monument marks his visit. The stone is actually from his Kentucky boyhood home, and it's right next to the Amtrak station. So it's not in some hidden sort of place. It's right there, so you can go down if you're just stopping, like I said, and go see it, take a picture of it, etc. The railroads are what built the town. You have to remember when Alliance started, it was only about 4 families. So it's not like there was tons of people. So the railroads, the Cleveland-Pittsburgh and the Ohio and Pennsylvania lines brought coal, steel, and people. And Alliance did become a Pittsburgh Railroad Division headquarters. And hearkening back to those older days, the modern Amtrak station was built in 2011. It's ADA accessible. It has a 550-foot tactile platform edge. And it's built to resemble that 1800s depot with the projecting brick bays and the stone accents. So as I said, we're going to also talk about the Underground Railroad, which, as we know, isn't actually a railroad, but I thought it made sense to combine it here. The Grants were a Quaker family who hid escaping slaves in the Haynes House attic in the 1830s and 40s. So the Grants were really interesting. They were a couple in their 20s who left the East Coast and traveled to Alliance, Ohio in a covered wagon with 2 children under the age of 2. And then, upon getting there, built a tiny little cabin and then proceeded to have 5 more children in this tiny little cabin. And so the Haynes house itself is really interesting because there is still that cabin section, which is like the old kitchen. And then there's 2 more rooms that were built, I think they said like the 30s or the 40s, 1830s, 1840s. And then 2 more rooms that were built when the family had more money, 1860s, 70s, 80s, somewhere around there. So it was very interesting to sort of walk through time when you're in this home. But yeah, so it was interesting. Like I said, it was located at a critical junction of 3 underground railroad routes. Alliance, Ohio is about 40 miles from West Virginia. This is important because when West Virginia broke off from Virginia, they were no longer a slave state. So this made a good crossing area on the Underground Railroad routes. So legend has it that Mr. Grant had his son sit out on the back porch with a shotgun when he was 10, and he would sit out there at night. The son's nicknamed it was Thump. And so he was to listen in the woods for noises, and he was to call out if the person was a friend, and if it was a bear or something, that's why he had the gun, so that he could defend himself against a wild animal. But if the response was that yes, they were friends, then they were invited in to stay for the night, get medical care, etc., because the Grants were really good friends with Levi Lamborn, who was the first physician in Alliance. So medical care was available at this location, which is important. Another thing that was really interesting about the house, which is now a museum and education center, open for guided tours, and they have some items you can purchase, is they have the actual box that Henry Box Brown mailed himself from the South up to the Pittsburgh Abolitionist Society. So it was really interesting to see like how large that box actually was. It wasn't very large at all. As I said, also in town is the Mount Union College. Mount Union College started in 1846, and the goal by Owen Hartshorne, Orville Nelson Hartshorne, is to educate everyone equally, men and women. He started the college in a carding mill on the 3rd floor. A carding mill is basically where you take wool and you have like 2, I don't want to say sandpaper, but 2 devices that you run the wool through to align it so that you can then go ahead and weave the wool into, the fibers for spinning, etc. The college was set up to have summer terms so that it could be done. That's what they called a normal school back then, which is basically for teachers. And the teachers would go to school in the summers, and then they could return to their, local schools to teach children in the rest of the school year. In 1911, Mount Union merged with the nearby Scioto College, Mount Union then became like a liberal leader in education. Famous alumni include, of course, President McKinley, as well as other famous abolitionists. And then moving on to industry, we have Morgan Engineering. Morgan Engineering was started in 1871. It was known for building the world's first overhead steam-powered crane. And today they specialize in industrial cranes, usually for steelmaking processes, and these things are just massive, 50, 60 feet tall, and they are wild to watch operate. Colonel William Morgan built Glamorgan Castle of Vermont marble. There are tours available of the building. Originally, it was owned by the Morgan family, and then after the Morgan family no longer had a use for it, Mrs. Morgan left it to the Elks, and the Elks operated it as what they called the $1 Million Elks Club for a while because it was such a fine home. It's on 50 acres, and the Elks found that they weren't able to keep it up because it's just so large. So what they did is they sold the 40 acres, and then they kept 10 acres in the back to build a new location for themselves. And the gentleman from Alliance Machine, he ended up purchasing it and did tons of renovations. And then a while ago, the building again needed some help, and they ended up doing a grant through HUD to go ahead and make it so that the schools could utilize it as their administrative office. And this worked for a very long time, although tours were not able to be done as often because the school was using it. During COVID and people working remotely, there was some water damage. So the Alliance administrative offices have left the location now, which opens up the location to so many more things like hosting dinner events, weddings, all those types of things. Like I said, when we were there in August for the Carnation Festival, the Carnation Festival includes parades, a rib fest, fireworks, Queen's Court, Shakespeare in the Castle. It lasts a whole week. And while we were there, they were actually setting up for the Shakespeare at the Castle. So that was really cool. If you look at the videos, you could see there's some activity there that they're setting up for. Alliance itself, like I said, is very walkable downtown. When you get off the train, it's pretty clear where you're supposed to go and how you're supposed to get places. It's pretty direct. There is a SARTA bus that's near the stop, but there is no Sunday service, and I don't think they go, I think they go 6 to 6, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So the train gets in an Alliance very late at night. So you're going to want to make some arrangements there. Car rentals are available, again, because the college is there, as well as Uber, Lyft, etc. For food, as I said, we went to the old Carolina Barbecue Company and also to Papa Gyro's. They're both local, like, franchisee places where I think there's a couple of the Carolina barbecues, maybe 2 or 3, and then the Papa Gyro's maybe 5 or 6. But it's just really good local fare. The barbecue place in particular had some really good sauces. I'm always a sucker for the different sauces. My husband insists that they don't need sauce, but I like trying out the different sauces, different places. Hotel-wise, you'll find a Holiday Inn, a Comfort Inn, a Hampton Inn, and again, those will be towards the south part of town, located by the college. For museums, they have the Troll Hole Museum, which is the largest collection of troll dolls in the world. So if you're interested in that, make sure to stop by. And then they also have a cat museum. If you're looking for outdoor activities, they have Silver Park, which offers nature that's just a couple minutes from downtown. The other thing that was interesting is they have an old Iron Horse Trail, which is like a rail-to-trail project that runs right behind their main street. And it provides, I want to say it's like a 10 or 12 foot trail, but it allows a walking path through the area that isn't like on the main street with all the intersections and, you know, people walking plus biking. Like, it's a nice trail to use as an alternate. So, like I said, make sure to stop. I appreciate you wandering through Alliance, Ohio with me. And we dug into the town's beginnings, the Carnation legacy, one-of-a-kind railroad junction that still shapes it today. Next time you're riding Amtrak's Floridian through town, consider hopping off and checking it out yourself. As always, if you're looking for more videos, make sure to check out our Alliance Station information video for the Amtrak station, or you can also watch the Amtrak footage that provides not only relaxing train sounds, but also our journey from Ohio down to Florida. Thanks for stopping by.